Christmas Nisse, Chapter 9, Hygge. When Bruno got back from school the next day, he had only seen Anneliese for a brief moment before she disappeared with a smile on her face. Anneliese had been gone several minutes when Bruno heard a quiet noise. Bing! He looked up and Anneliese was back.
It's good now. I'll fix it.
What have you fixed? What was wrong? Asked Bruno.
You will have Hygge now.
Hygge? What's that?
You will find out. It's a lovely feeling. You will like it. You will know it when you feel it.
There came a call from downstairs.
Bruno Watson, get down here this instant,
his mum demanded. He glared at Anneliese. You'd better not have got me in trouble again. Anneliese giggled. Bruno went down the stairs nervously. What had she done this time? As he went into the living room, he saw his mum, with her arms folded, standing next to a large, undecorated Christmas tree.
What have you got to say for yourself, young man?
Asked Mrs. Watson sternly. By now, Bruno was learning to think quickly. He'd had to take the blame for Anneliese's actions ever since she'd arrived. So far, he'd just about got away with it. But this was one thing he couldn't pretend wasn't there. The tree was right in front of him.
Where did you get this from?
You haven't been stealing, have you? Mrs. Watson demanded. Of course not, said Bruno, madly trying to think of what to say to his mum. He couldn't very well say that a Nisse had conjured it here, but he also didn't want to lie to his mum. I didn't steal it, he said carefully. Let's just say I've been saving my pocket money. It was true. He had been saving his pocket money. Spending your own money on a tree? You don't need to do that. We usually go and get the tree just before Christmas. Was it just that you couldn't wait? Something like that, he said. It's nice to have it in here for more of December, isn't it? It does make the room a little more festive, I suppose. But it just won't do. Bruno's heart sank. Now that he'd got over the shock of having to try to explain why the tree was there, he thought it looked great and he wanted it to stay. He was sad to think that his mum wanted to take it away. It certainly won't do, she said, to have a Christmas tree looking so bare. I think we need to find the decorations, don't you? We can decorate it together. Bruno's eyes lit up. He loved decorating the tree, but last year he'd had to do it by himself. It would be so much more fun to do it together with his mum. They found the Christmas box up in the attic, and they had a great time hanging baubles and little Christmas figures all over the tree. Bruno was responsible for the bottom half, and his mum hung things on the branches near the top. Before long, the tree was glistening in many different colours. They had found the decorations that they had collected over many years, and as a result, the tree gleamed in gold, silver, red, blue and purple. When they were nearly finished, Mrs. Watson went to make them a congratulatory hot chocolate. Psst, came a small voice.
Hey, Bruno, you has forgotten the star.
What star? Whispered Bruno.
For the top of the tree, of course.
We don't have a star on the top. We're going to put the fairy on the top of the tree. And we haven't forgotten her. It's always the last thing we put on the tree when everything else is done.
Ooh, this is much interesting. A fairy instead of a star on top of the tree. I can good like it.
And Annalisa made a note in her book, which was already getting full of interesting English Christmas facts. Mrs. Watson came back in. I do love hot chocolate, she said, but we've nearly run out. Remind me to get some more, Bruno. I always forget. Decorating the tree had put Mrs. Watson in a Christmassy mood. She used all her strength to lift Bruno up so he could place the fairy onto the top of the tree. She turned on the fairy lights that were draped on the tree, and they stood back and admired their work. The tree looked fantastic, but Mrs. Watson wasn't satisfied. Bruno, our work has only just begun, she said. Bruno noticed a glint in her eye. He hadn't seen her this happy for ages. Guess what we are going to do after our mince pies, she said. They spent the evening decorating the whole house. They went into the garden where Bruno chose some holly for his mum to cut and place all around the house. They hung up silver and gold tinsel everywhere, and soon the house was looking beautifully festive. Bruno went to bed that evening feeling tired but very happy. It had been such a fun day, but most importantly, he'd had a really good time with his mum. He couldn't remember the last time they had spent a whole evening together, just having fun. He thought back to the strange word Annalisa had told him earlier, Hygge. He was certain that he had experienced Hygge with his mum that evening. He found himself looking forward to what the next day would bring. He'd already had amazing adventures, but it wasn't even halfway through December yet. He knew that with Annalisa around, the adventures were bound to continue. Bruno's dreams that night were full of Christmas trees and reindeer and snow.
Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one